Welcome to This Horror Real.
The deadbolt on my front door turned at 3:12 in the morning while I was lying awake in bed. I froze. It wasn't someone knocking. It wasn't somebody trying the wrong apartment. I heard the metal bolt slide back, followed by the soft click of my front door opening. I lived alone. My phone was charging beside me, and I grabbed it while staring toward the dark hallway outside my bedroom. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then the floor creaked near my kitchen. I called 911 and whispered that someone had just entered my apartment. While the dispatcher asked if I could lock myself inside the bedroom, another creak came from the hallway, closer this time. I got up just long enough to lock my bedroom door, then backed away from it. The sound outside stopped. I stood there listening, phone pressed against my ear. About 20 seconds later, footsteps moved away from my bedroom. Then I heard the apartment door quietly close. Police arrived 7 minutes later. They searched every room, checked my windows and balcony door, then examined the front entrance. Nothing had been forced, nothing obvious was missing, and somehow my front door was locked again. One officer stood beside it and asked me a question I couldn't answer. Who else has a key? Nobody was supposed to. I barely slept. Around 9 that morning, I opened my front door for work and almost walked directly into my neighbor across the hall. His name was Daniel. He was standing beside his own door holding a trash bag, but he wasn't walking toward the stairs. He was just standing there. When he saw me, he said, "Rough night?" I stopped. "What do you mean?" "The police," he said. "They woke me up." That explanation made sense until I remembered something. During the entire time the officers had been inside my apartment, Daniel never opened his door. I told him somebody had entered my place. His eyes moved past me into the apartment. "Did they take anything?" "No," he nodded. "Maybe you forgot to lock it." I didn't argue. I went downstairs and headed to work, but halfway there, I realized what bothered me. I hadn't told Daniel there were no signs of forced entry. I hadn't told him the person appeared to have used the door normally, and I definitely hadn't told him anything about the lock. Yet that was the first thing he tried to explain. That evening, I searched my apartment differently, not for something stolen, for something changed. A drinking glass was sitting upright beside the kitchen sink. I always stored them upside down in the cabinet. The bathroom hand towel was hanging differently. Then I started remembering other things. My closet door opened when I thought I'd closed it. A kitchen drawer pulled out an inch. My phone charger unplugged from the wall. My television on one morning when I couldn't remember leaving it that way. Every incident had been small enough to blame on myself. Now they didn't feel small. On my way home the following evening, I bought an indoor security camera. I placed it on a bookshelf facing the front door, with part of the kitchen and hallway visible. Before bed, I checked the windows. Then I locked the deadbolt and took a picture of it with my phone. I didn't want to wake up wondering whether I'd forgotten again. This time, I wanted proof. At 6:20 the next morning, I opened the camera app before getting out of bed. There was a motion recording from 3:47 a.m. My hands were already shaking when I pressed play. The video showed my front door under the dim kitchen light. Nothing moved for several seconds. Then the deadbolt rotated. The door opened. Daniel stepped into my apartment. He didn't look confused. He didn't check the apartment number. He stepped inside, closed the door behind him and locked it. He was wearing sweatpants, a dark sweatshirt, and socks, no shoes. That detail bothered me because it looked deliberate. He stood completely still and listened. Then he turned toward the hallway, toward my bedroom, and walked out of the camera's view. I had been asleep back there. The recording showed that Daniel remained inside my apartment for 4 minutes and 11 seconds. When he came back into view, he wasn't carrying anything. He unlocked the front door, stepped outside, then then reached back into my apartment and turned the deadbolt before pulling the door shut. I replayed it 3 times. The worst part wasn't seeing my neighbor inside my home. It was seeing how comfortable he was. He moved like someone who already knew the apartment, like he'd done it before. I didn't confront Daniel. I went directly to the property management office and showed the recording to the manager, Kelly. She watched the whole thing without speaking. Then I asked the question that mattered. How does he have my key? She said he shouldn't. Residents were never supposed to have keys to other units, but Daniel had sometimes helped the building's previous maintenance worker carry appliances, move equipment, and open storage areas. He wasn't an employee. He had simply been allowed to help. Could he have gotten access to apartment keys? Kelly hesitated. I don't know. Management called a locksmith immediately. My deadbolt was replaced that afternoon and a ring camera installed. While the locksmith worked, Daniel opened his door across the hall. He looked at the locksmith, then the new lock, then me. He didn't ask what happened. He simply went back inside. That evening, my phone received a text from an unknown number. 4 words. New lock looks expensive. Police documented the message, but they couldn't immediately prove Daniel had sent it. I blocked the number. Then I placed a rubber door wedge beneath my front door and moved the camera somewhere less obvious. At 1:18 the next morning, my phone vibrated. The ring camera detected motion. I opened the live feed. Daniel was kneeling outside my door. He inserted a key into the new lock. It didn't turn. He pulled it out, tried again. Nothing. Then he leaned forward and put the side of his head against my door, listening. After almost a minute, he stood. Then he looked directly toward the ring camera. His posture changed immediately. He backed away and returned to his apartment. Less than a minute later, another unknown number texted me. You shouldn't have installed that ring camera. I stared at the message. That was when the situation changed for me. He wasn't simply entering my apartment. He was paying attention to how I was trying to stop him. And every time I changed something, he changed too. Police questioned Daniel that morning. He first denied entering my apartment. Then they told him there was video. His story changed. He claimed he'd heard water running and entered because he thought there might be a leak. He thought it was his duty to check. Previous management didn't mind. Police asked why the footage showed him walking toward my bedroom instead of checking the kitchen or bathroom. Daniel said he couldn't remember. There had been no leak. Police asked for the key. Later that afternoon, Kelly called. Management had checked old records. 3 months earlier, Daniel had briefly been given access to a cabinet containing building keys while helping the previous maintenance worker. Nobody had completed a proper inventory afterwards. Daniel could have had my key for nearly the entire 4 months I'd lived there. That realization hit harder than the camera footage. The camera hadn't shown me the first time Daniel entered. It had only shown me the first time I caught him. Suddenly, the open closet, unplugged charger, and half-open drawers weren't random anymore, and I started wondering what else I'd failed to notice. I stayed with my sister for 2 nights. When I returned during daylight to pack clothes, I searched my bedroom. That's when I found a plastic bottle cap underneath my bed. It wasn't from a brand I bought. I pulled the bed farther away from the wall. There were faint scuff marks near the outlet behind my nightstand. My ring cam didn't pick up anything. Neither thing proved Daniel had caused them, but they brought back a memory I'd tried to dismiss. Weeks earlier, I'd awakened in the middle of the night, convinced I'd heard breathing near my bedroom doorway. I'd stayed completely still, listening. Eventually, I checked the apartment. Nobody was there. The front door was locked, so I told myself it had been a dream. Now I understood that a locked front door didn't mean nobody had been inside. Daniel could enter with a key, move through the apartment, then lock everything again before he left, and as far as I knew, he had never been stealing anything. Whatever he wanted required him to be inside while I was asleep. Management checked the hallway camera near the elevator. They could only recover limited footage. It was enough. On one recording, Daniel left his apartment at 2:06 a.m., walked directly across the hallway, and entered mine. 7 minutes later, he came back out. 4 nights later, he did it again. Then they showed me the third recording. At 1:51 a.m., Daniel approached my door but didn't immediately enter. He stood outside for almost 2 minutes listening. Then he unlocked it and went inside. I remembered that night. I had fallen asleep on the couch watching television. Around 2 in the morning, I'd awakened because I thought I heard my refrigerator door close. I never got up. I rolled over and went back to sleep. Daniel had been inside. The footage destroyed his explanation about checking for a leak. This wasn't one incident. It was a routine. Management began the process of removing him from the building, but eviction didn't happen instantly. For the moment, Daniel still lived directly across from me, and now he knew I was the reason he might lose his apartment. I returned only to remove my belongings. My brother came with me. We had been packing for about 20 minutes when someone knocked. 3 soft taps. My brother moved toward the door. I stopped him. Then Daniel spoke from the hallway. I just want to explain. I wasn't doing anything to her. I was checking on things, that's all. She sleeps hard anyway. Then the hallway went completely silent. We called the police. They knocked on Daniel's door. No answer. My brother had to leave to go to work. Police told me not to stay there alone. I didn't. My sister came for one final night while I finished packing. Around 12:40, she fell asleep on the couch. I kept boxing things in the bedroom. At 1:16, my phone displayed a motion alert. Daniel was outside. He didn't knock. He inserted a key into my new lock. It failed. He tried again. Then he walked away. For 10 minutes, nothing happened. I thought he'd given up. Then I heard metal scraping against the front door. I woke my sister and called police. Through the peephole, I could see Daniel crouched beside the lock. Then the inside handle moved downward. Once, it rose, then pushed down again, harder. The deadbolt held. Daniel stopped. I heard whispering. For a second, I thought he was speaking to me. Then I realized he was talking to somebody on his phone. A few seconds later, he disappeared from the peephole, and my sister's phone rang. The call was from building management. Someone had reported that water was pouring from my apartment into the unit below. There was no leak. The bathroom was dry. The kitchen was dry. Nothing was running. Then I understood what Daniel was doing. His key no longer worked. Forcing the lock hadn't worked. So he'd created an emergency that could bring someone with legitimate building access to my door. Someone who might open it for him. Kelly immediately warned the on-call maintenance worker not to enter. Then she called police. Daniel must have realized the plan had failed. The hallway camera caught him moving quickly toward the stairwell. Officers arrived while he was still downstairs and detained him near the rear exit. In his sweatshirt pocket, they found several keys. One fit my original apartment lock. Another opened a utility closet. Several others couldn't immediately be identified. Every time I took away one method of access, Daniel found another. When the key worked, he entered quietly. When I installed a camera, he watched the camera. When I changed the lock, he tried intimidation. When the new lock stopped him, he tried to manufacture a reason for someone else to open my door. He wasn't losing interest. He was adapting. Daniel was removed from the building, and the recordings, anonymous texts, hallway footage, and keys recovered from him became part of the police investigation. I moved out before the end of the month because even with him gone, I couldn't sleep there anymore. Every small sound made me look toward the front door. Every time I woke during the night, I checked the hallway. I thought leaving the building would finally end it. Then Kelly called me several weeks later. Management had identified more of the keys police recovered from Daniel. One opened a vacant apartment 2 floors below mine. Another opened a storage room residents were never supposed to access. Another belonged to an older utility lock that had supposedly been taken out of service. Nobody could explain why Daniel had collected them or how long he'd had them. Hearing that made everything worse because my apartment apparently hadn't been the only place he could enter without permission. I asked Kelly if there was anything else. She went quiet for a moment before telling me maintenance had found something inside my old apartment after I moved. It wasn't at the front door. It was in my bedroom. Maintenance had removed the old doorknob from my bedroom after I moved out. Around the emergency release hole on the hallway side of the knob were several small scratches. My bedroom door was the only interior door I sometimes locked while sleeping. I had always believed that even if somebody somehow got through my front door, that bedroom lock would slow them down long enough for me to wake up. Now, someone had apparently tried to defeat it from the outside. Maybe once, maybe more than once. I sat there holding my phone and thinking about the nights before I installed the camera. The morning I found my charger unplugged, the closet door I couldn't remember opening, the refrigerator sound that woke me while I was sleeping on the couch. The night I thought I heard breathing near my bedroom doorway, Daniel had spent 4 minutes and 11 seconds inside my apartment on the night the camera caught him, but the camera only showed the entrance and part of the hallway. I still don't know what he did once he disappeared from view. I don't know how many nights he'd entered before that recording existed. I don't know how many times he'd stood outside my locked bedroom door, and I don't know whether those scratches were made while I was awake, while I was gone, or while I was lying asleep only a few feet away. What still bothers me most is how ordinary everything looked from the outside. An apartment hallway, a locked front door, a neighbor living only a few feet away. I went to work, came home, locked my door, and went to sleep believing those ordinary things were enough to keep another person out. Meanwhile, someone who knew the building better than I did apparently had a key to my home, knew how deeply I slept, knew when I installed a camera, knew when I changed my lock, and kept finding new ways to get closer whenever I tried to stop him. The camera didn't create the danger. It only proved the danger had already been there. If you saw your neighbor entering your apartment on camera while you slept, what would you do first? Tell me in the comments. And if you've ever experienced something that made you realize someone had been inside your home without permission, share what happened. Subscribe to this horror reel for more realistic horror stories where the danger feels possible, because sometimes the person outside your door isn't trying to figure out how to get in. Sometimes they already know.